Alright, boys and girls, today's lesson is lesson 4-7, thousandths. Today your goals will be that you will be able to read, write, and model with base 10 blocks, decimals through the thousandths, name the fractional part of the 1 represented by each base 10 block, rename fractions with 10, 100, and 1000 in the denominator as decimals, and compare and order decimals through thousandths. So in the past, during this unit, we have been talking about the tenths and the hundredths place. So if you talk about place value, if you have the number 1 and a decimal and a 5 and a 2, we're talking about two place value spots here. This would be the tenths and this would be the hundredths. So you have the tenths and the hundredths place, and this is easy to think about because if your whole, which would be the 1, is, for base 10 blocks, is the flat, you know that there are 100 cubes inside the flat, and there are 10 longs inside the flat. So that's why it's easy as a fraction that one of these is equal to 1/100th, because there are 100 of these in the flat, and the long, each one long represents 1 out of the 10, or 1/10, because there are 10 of those equal the flat, because the flat is broken into 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I think I have 10, something like that, but there's 10 of them in there, so each one of these would represent 1 out of the 10 needed to make the whole. And then when you separate it, something like that, just for an example, you have 100 of these in here, so just one of these represents 1 out of the 100 needed to make a whole one of the flats. So to find the tenths and the hundredths, they are all based on making the 1, or the whole, being the flat. So now if we change it around a little bit and we make the whole, or the 1, be the big cube, or the big block, if we make it the big cube, then we now know there are 1,000 little cubes inside of the big cube. Next step is there are 100 longs inside the big cube, and then there are 10 flats inside the big cube. So if this were a decimal now, we could extend another spot out because we have 1,000 cubes into here. So this 1 cube would represent 1/1000th. That's based on nothing over there. But this little cube would be 1/1000th, because there's 1,000 of these cubes that'll make you fill up, or that'll get you all the 1,000 needed to make the big cube. And then there are 100 longs to make a big cube, and then there are 10 flats to make the big cube. So one of these, 1 flat would be there, 1 long would be here. So it switches up a little bit because we've been doing tenths and hundredths when we use the flat as our whole, one of these. But because we're using something bigger now that has actually has 1,000 little pieces in it, we're able to extend to one more place value, and that is called the thousandths. And that's kind of our whole lesson today, is just getting to where you all can understand the thousandths place. Because the thousandths place is just basically an extra place where you could have 1,000 of this one place would equal the whole. And the easiest way to do it is to use the big cube. So let's turn to your journal page 94. A little blurry for some reason, don't know why. There we go, shook the blur out of it. Alright, so let's turn to page 94 in our journal. This is telling you in here that you have tenths, hundredths, and thousands based on the big cube. Because now our whole is the big cube. Whenever our whole is the big cube, 1,000 of these little cubes will fit into that whole, so that one cube would equal 1/1000th. Okay? So, by looking at number 1, this is saying one big cube is equal to how many flats? Well, here's a flat. How many flats go into the big cube? Hopefully, you know that a big cube equals 10 flats, so therefore one of the flats would equal 1/10 of the big cube. This tells you right here that you have one of the 10 needed to make a big cube. If you get all 10 of the 10 needed to make the big cube, then you actually have the big cube, you have the whole. Next one here, one big cube is equal to how many longs? Here's the longs. We know that there are 10 of these in here, and then there's 10 flats in the big cube, so there will be, hopefully you all know that there are 100 longs in a big cube. So a long is 1 out of the 100 longs needed to make the big cube. So 1/100th. Next, the big cube has how many little cubes? Well, you should all know that it is 1,000. It is 1 out of the 1,000 big cubes needed to one or the 1,000 little cubes needed to make the big cubes. So that's why we call it 1/1000th. Alright, so let me zoom up a little bit here and get out of here. If we use this graph, this chart right here, this is telling you that the first thing you want to do is look and see, okay, what is my whole? This is telling you that the big cube is equal to 1. Okay, that is your whole. So if we go through some of the fractions down here, if you look at number 4, you'll see it has 1 flat with 4 longs and 2 cubes to equal 142 out of the 1,000. Because remember, the 1,000 is our whole. So if we make sure we put the 1,000 down on every one of these, just to make everything a little easier, because we know we're working with our whole as 1,000. So when you get 142 over 1,000, it equals 0.142 as a decimal, or 142 thousandths. Next one, let's do 2 flats, which is 200, and then we have 5 cubes. So we have 205. So we have 205 thousandths, which would look like this. Look like that on as a decimal. Next one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 longs. We know that there are how many longs inside a well, we know the longs are in the hundredths place now. So we said 6 longs with 0 tenths. Oh, sorry, 0 thousandths, because there's no small cubes or anything. So we actually have a 0.060 because there aren't any flats in here and there's no cubes in here. So 0.060, which is equal to 61 thousandths, or if you want to look at it a different way, you could just say 6/100ths. But next we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the flats. So 5 flats would equal to 500 out of the 1,000, because we know each flat is technically equal to 100 cubes. So it would be 0.500. So it would be 500 thousandths, or you could shrink it down, just say it's 5/10ths, because we all know you don't need the zeros after it if you don't want to. Next one, it gives you a cube. So it tells you have a whole. You have one whole already. And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4 longs and 3 cubes. So you have 43. So you have 1 and 43 thousandths. Because that right there is telling you already have a hole, so make sure you put the hole on the side. Okay, on the next page, I'm going to go through the first couple with you, and then I want you to do the rest on your own. If you look at, this is always the easiest part with decimals, or fractions to decimals. As long as you have the 1,000 on the bottom, or 100 on the bottom, or 10 on the bottom, you should be able to tell exactly what it is. So I'll do a couple with you writing them as a decimal, and I'll do a couple from each section, or one from each section to get you going on your own. So if you have 416 thousandths, it's basically 0, 416 thousandths. Remember, the 6 is in the thousandths place, and that's why it tells you at the bottom 1,000. Next one, you have 7 and 9 100ths. So when you have 7, it tells you have 7 holes. Then you put your decimal, and then you have 9 in the hundredths place. So 0, 9, because that 9 ends in the hundredths place. Okay, I'm not going to do them all for you, but I'll scroll up here a little bit. And then it says draw base 10 blocks to show each number. Here's an example. This has 1, 2, and then 0 longs and 5 cubes. That's why you get 0.205. This one needs 2 flats, because it's telling you to, and it needs 1 long. The next one, B, it tells you to make 3 of the flats, no longs, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the cubes. Okay, so I'm going to do one more down here for you, and then you can continue with the rest of this page on your own. This right here says write each in decimal notations. Easy. All you do is you look at the last thing they say. Thousandths, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, tenths, or thousandths, sorry. So what you do is you always make sure the fraction tells you what it is. So on the bottom of the fraction, the denominator should be 1,000 here because it tells you 284 thousandths. So you do 284 thousandths because it stops at the thousandths place. B tells you 36 hundredths. So hundredths means you put the denominator as 100, and it would be 36 hundredths. So what I want you to do now is I want you to continue working on this page. So finish this page, and then if you have time, go ahead and get started on your math boxes on math boxes for 4-7. Alrighty, good luck. Go get 'em.